So here is the question. How do you become financially free? Or what is one of the first steps you have to take to be financially free, regardless of whether you're 30 or 80 years old? Stick around. Hey everyone, this is RC Peck with Fearless Wealth, and I want to talk about financial freedom. Now that means something different for everyone, and there's so much information out there, but we're at kind of the beginning of this idea. So I want to make sure you know the three things so you can start really setting up your plan to know when or if you are already financially free or when you will be financially free. So there's three things you have to know kind of as your foundation. Okay, so here's the first one that people generally don't like to want to figure out, and that is you actually have to know where you are. You have to know what your net, I call it net wealth. You have to know what your net wealth is, right? You add up all of your investment accounts. You add up the equity you have in your house, if you have a house. You subtract all the debt you have, right? So you get that number, that net wealth number. So the first thing is you actually have to get a net wealth number. Okay, that's really important. Most people don't know it. Depending on your age, when I ask people, hey, what's your net worth? If you're younger, whatever that may be, let's just say it's under 40 or under, people normally say their income. Their income is their wealth. But as people exit their 40s, they're very clear their income is not their wealth. It's a part of their wealth, but really what their wealth is what they've collected and saved and transferred to their future. That is really their wealth, because when you break about the 50-year-old mark, you start going, hey, there's a day I would like to acquire the choice to not have to work. So the first thing is you have to just know where you are right now, what your wealth is. Now, included in this, you can add any sort of Social Security payment or RRSP or superannuation or whatever it is called in your country and when it's gonna start, right? So you could add that, but you have to know where you are today, which means you have to know your net wealth. So that's the first thing. It's literally finding out where you are on the map. Most people usually think they're somewhere else than they actually are, and very few people know their net wealth. So that's the number one thing. It's actually one of the first things I do when I bring people into my training is to say, we got to figure out where you are. Okay, so that's number one. Here's the second thing. This is something that is really going to help that very few people do. Every month, just update your net wealth number. Now, there's not a lot that goes into this, but if you have like 100 ticker symbols in the market, it's going to be really complicated. But the next thing you really have to understand is which direction your wealth is going, right? So at a minimum, you want to know quarterly, right, to update these numbers once a quarter. I teach people to do it once a month for the first 12 months. And then once they do that first 12 months and they update those numbers, right, they pull up their sleeves, they get the fingernails dirty a little bit, and they really understand where their money is going. Are they even putting money to their future? I call it transferring it to your future. Some call it savings, though that's a bad idea because people think the money left over in their checking account is savings. No, that's just it's called deferred spending. It's gonna get spent. Something is only saved as if you put it into an account for your future. So the second thing you have to know for your financial freedom, when will I be financially free? Am I financially free? Is you have to know the direction of your net wealth. Is it going up? Is it going down? Or is it staying the same? Okay. That's number two, the direction of your wealth. Here's number three, and I'm gonna do like a 3 and I'm gonna do a 4. So let me do the third part and let me just add something on. Last thing is you have to know your target. Now there's moving parts with this, but again, there's not thousands of moving parts. And what I mean by the target is you're gonna have to start to make some assumptions. I wanna stop working in X years, or I wanna stop working now, can I? Right, so the first thing you need to know is your target, meaning it can be in years or it can be in money. When you figure out your target, what you're really figuring out is you're making some assumptions, right? So let's say you have $1 million in the market. Pretty reasonable to say that you can pull 4% of that money out a year. Just we're doing general things here. So that's $40,000 a year, and you don't touch the $1 million. Let's say you get a Social Security payment of $2,500 a month. That's another $30,000 a year. So those two numbers together is $70,000. And for now, let's make the assumption that neither of them run out. So you could look and say, okay, right now I have $70,000 of income. What is my expense? So when you set the target, you're actually setting the target based on annual needs or annual income, right? It doesn't necessarily have to do with net wealth per se. You do need to know your net wealth. You need to know these numbers, but what you want to know with the target is, what's it cost to live a year in my life, right? You may move, right? You may not have the kids in college anymore, but you want to start looking at, what does a year in my life cost? Post-tax. So maybe it costs $100,000 a year. And just think of it right now today in just today dollars. Don't worry about inflation right now, but just kind of get a general idea of what that annual income is. Does that make sense? So that is the target. I kind of put 3 and 4 together talking about an annual income and target. But what's most important with this video is that there are 3 parts that I really want you to get. You can do this in a spreadsheet. Right, number 1 is you have to know the net wealth you have. That's number 1. Number 2, you have to know the direction your wealth is moving. Because if it's flat for a year or it's moving down every year, then you either have an income problem, a savings problem, or a spending problem, right? So you can be like, oh my gosh, we're spending way too much. I'm not making enough. How do we fix this, right? You can start to identify a problem. It's rarely the stock market. I'll just say that right now to everyone. I would actually say this. It's never the stock market. You're either living beyond your means and or not putting money into your future, or you just don't have the income that is needed for what you want when you want to have that target. Okay, and then the third is the target is about the annual income. Again, you can do this in a super simple spreadsheet. I've had the same wealth dashboard for my clients for probably 2 decades, which just puts it out exactly what it is, when they're going to be able to stop working, how far the gap is. Is it $10,000 a year? Are they over? They only need $90,000 a year and they're getting $130,000 a year in income from their investments and their Social Security and their pension. But the key here is having that income come in and not really running out of that income. And it can be all different levels, right? Just super quickly, when my parents kind of acquired the choice to not have to work, it was based on 2 Social Security checks and 1 small pension. Okay, those were the 3 things. That was their income. Okay, they had a small house in the greater Seattle area that actually my sister and myself helped them buy. We came up with the down payment for them. So not all parents might have kids that can do that. But the point is, if you would have looked at their net wealth, it was really low. But what they did have was basically 3 pensions, 2 Social Security pensions, and 1 small pension from a company my dad worked for years ago. And so their net wealth was actually low. But what they did the right way was, and there's some randomness and luck to this, is they found a place that they could afford to buy, and basically they'd never run out of money as long as they were smart with how they spent, and they've always been that way. So anyway, thanks guys for being in my world. I appreciate you. This is about what are the questions you're asking about these, the answers that you want, and it's getting clarity around what those questions are. Thank you. Leave a comment, leave a like, say hello. I love the comments. I respond to all of them. Appreciate you guys being in my world. And I will talk to you soon. Okay, bye.